Today I will analyze and prove how the PED, or price elasticity of demand, can vary due to a change in price, even though if the change in two different prices has the same absolute value. If we observe the example in the graph, we can see how there are two different changes in price. First change is a change from 7 to 6, and the other one is a change from 3 to 2. We appreciate that the absolute change in both cases is 1. Therefore, it would sound incorrect if we say that the price elasticity of demand is different because the change is the same. However, we have to have in mind when we are analyzing graphs in order to find the PED that the way to find the PED consists in observe the change in prices in a percentage way. Therefore, we can appreciate that in the graph, the change from 7 to 6 in percentage is going to be much smaller than the change in percentage from 3 to 2. The same thing happened with the quantity demand. We can see how the change from here to here is going to be so much larger than the change from here to here. Therefore, it's understandable that a change in quantity demanded or in price, in absolute value, even though it's the same, is going to have a different effect on PED. Moving on, we have the example of shoes, in this case ASICS. And we can observe in this graph how we have until 8 of price of 8 from 0 to 8 and from 0 to 14 quantity demanded. We have 4 different points A, B, C, and D. And we have to have in mind that the midpoint is the unit elasticity for PED when it equals 1 its proportionality. In this case, it's 4 times 20. Therefore, the total revenue for that point for unit elasticity is going to be 80. If we observe the other points A, C, and D, we appreciate how the total revenues are smaller than the unit elasticity's total revenue. And we also observe that as closer these points get to point V to unit elasticity, as closer they get, the total revenues is increasing. Therefore, we appreciate that as total revenue increases, PED approaches to unit elasticity. But what is really unit elasticity? Well, the price of or the formula for price elasticity of demand is a change in percentage of demand over change in percentage of price is going to be equal of the PED. There are two terms, elastic and inelastic. If a change occurs in P and it doesn't really affect the quantity demanded, we say it's inelastic. It's inelastic when PED is less than 1. Because if we can see if this value is inferior than this is less than this value is going to be less than 0. Oh, sorry, less than 1. When a change in price really affects the quantity demanded, or when the quantity demanded in percentage change is higher than the change in price in percentage, we say is elastic. When a change happens in price, it does really affect the quantity demanded, we say is elastic. It is proportional when, for example, if you move the price of ASICS 10%, or you move the price down 10%, and the quantity demanded increases by 10%, this will be equals 1, we say it's elastic. Observing the graph again, we see that when it's unit elastic, when it's proportional, it's unit elastic, not elastic. So when we observe the graph, we can see how the unit elastic also has the highest revenue. Therefore, we can get to the conclusion that as closer the PED gets to 1, the total revenue is going to be higher. Now we have to observe what can affect the PED. We have SPLAT, which means substitutes, proportion of income, luxury of necessity, adjective, or time to adjust. These are some things that can affect a good or service. So in the case of axis, I'm just going to study the substitutes now because I don't have enough time. So there are a lot of substitutes like bill, bond, quicksilver, and some others. So we can say how the relationship between price and quantity demanded is going to be relatively elastic. So because a small change in price would mean that the quantity demanded would really be affected by that, because people would think, well, I can get the same product by less price, so I'm not going to buy ASICS. That's